Welcome back, everyone. Marvel just revealed who the real main villain of Deadpool 3 is going to be, and it's a huge deep cut for the X-Men movies and for the previous Deadpool movies. We knew there'd be a bunch of comic book accurate versions of the X-Men showing up in the movie, with all the classic X-Men coming back. So no big surprise that the actual main villain of the movie will be a big twist on a familiar character like one of those classic X-Men coming back, and from the recent Marvel movies too, like building on the plot of the recent Marvel movies.
Mild shock.
If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. And speaking of big crossover with Deadpool 3, Loki Season 2 episodes are coming in a couple months. That will cross over with Deadpool 3 in a much bigger way, like literally because of all the TVA characters that are in Deadpool 3. But the big news you may have seen is the actual main villain is a super deep cut for the more recent X-Men comics in a dark twist on Professor X, who will come back at some point during the movie in a very twisty kind of way.
That's a twist. That's very twisty.
Patrick Stewart's Professor X isn't meant to be the main villain. Deadpool is supposed to travel to the 838 universe at some point. Scarlet Witch killed most of the Illuminati, including him, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But reportedly, Patrick Stewart is featured at some point during the movie, so Deadpool might visit the 838 universe before the events of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but I think they're supposed to deal with the aftermath of what Scarlet Witch did, killing most of the team. So it sounds like they'll just explain him appearing in the movie in some flashback kind of way, or Deadpool just appears in a couple different parts of the timeline in the 838 universe. There are a couple easy time travel ways to explain how he shows up in the movie, but he's still dead in present day. And we already knew that Emma Corrin was playing the main villain, but the earlier report is that she'd be a TVA judge, kind of like Renslayer. Now it seems like she's actually playing Cassandra Nova, who is the evil twin of Professor X. That's the super deep cut for the X-Men comics and for the recent Deadpool movies. During Deadpool 2, one of the main villains was Juggernaut, Professor X's brother, so it's just like another member of Professor X's family. Cassandra Nova has a really crazy backstory, so I'll explain her. She's a relatively newer character from the recent new X-Men run in the early 2000s. That was Grant Morrison's run, so no surprise Deadpool want to borrow from one of the comic book masters. It's a great run if you haven't read it. They even borrowed a little bit from that run for X-Men Dark Phoenix. The costumes that the X-Men team is wearing during that are from that new X-Men run. Her full name, though, is Cassandra Nova Xavier, because Charles Xavier. And as you would expect from Grant Morrison, her backstory is totally nuts. Like, how did Professor X have a twin that we just learned about in the 2000s? He explained that because Professor X was born so powerful, his genetic potential was so great, when he was in his mother's womb growing, it caused the creation of a fraternal twin to form from the living embodiment of Professor X's anti-self, like this cosmic form that took shape because he was so powerful. They explained that the Shi'ar have this concept saying that each person has an opposite or an anti-form of themselves that exists cosmically out there in the universe, but usually it's just this formless cosmic energy that never takes shape, especially for people who aren't that powerful, like normal humans. But because Professor X was so powerful, even in his mother's womb, his anti-self was able to take form, sort of like latch on to him and use that to take form and become his fraternal twin. Later taking the name Cassandra Nova Xavier, and because they're fraternal twins in the comics, she looks exactly like him, just female. Now, Emma Corrin doesn't look anything like Patrick Stewart, even younger Patrick Stewart, but I think they'll just kind of wave their hands at that. Don't worry that they don't look exactly alike. They're fraternal twins. Fraternal twins look just a tiny bit different. When they were growing in the womb, Professor X was so powerful that he unconsciously became aware of her, his evil anti-self, and tried to kill her with his mutant powers, like kill his twin in the womb. The event was so crazy, it caused his mother to suffer a miscarriage when she gave birth to both of them, and they believe that only Professor X survived the birth, but Cassandra Nova, having powers equal to that of Professor X, was able to survive as a lump of cells hiding in the walls of the building. Yes, this is right, Grant Morrison actually wrote this. Slowly creating a body for herself over decades until eventually she was able to emerge looking just like Professor X, but super evil, super pissed off, and looking for revenge against him. She became the main villain of that big Grant Morrison new X-Men run, and she goes about trying to destroy the X-Men, tearing down everything in Professor X's life, mostly succeeding. She kills almost everybody on Genosha, the mutant island, then goes after the Shi'ar Empire, and they were only able to stop her by tricking her into transferring her consciousness into a different body and trapping her in that form. They weren't able to actually kill her. Ultimately, they could only contain her and wipe her memory. She just came back in the more recent comics too, working with the Hellfire Club and the Marauders, trying to cause more trouble for the X-Men. Professor X just create more havoc in general. Eventually, that group, the Marauders she was working with, tried to trap her in the past too. Like, even the villain she was working with didn't like her. So as of the more recent comics, she's trapped in the distant past, still very much alive, still very much looking for revenge. Supposedly something similar is going on with her character in Deadpool 3, like her backstory will be similar to her comic book origin story. She was a twin of Professor X that he tried to kill in the womb, but she survived and has been seeking revenge ever since. And at least in present day of the 838 universe, like after the events of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Professor X being dead means that unless Emma Frost is in the movie, I don't think that she is, the only telepath that they'd have in the 838 universe that'd be powerful enough to stop her would be Jean Grey. Famke Janssen's coming back as her character. She also has her Phoenix-level powers, and the 838 version of Scarlet Witch, who isn't a telepath but is super powerful. Hopefully the movie will not end with a more comic book accurate version of Wolverine just trying to repeat the ending from X-Men Last Stand. This time, instead of him trying to stop the Phoenix from going crazy and killing everyone, it's an evil version of Professor X. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about them using Cassandra Nova, Professor X's evil twin, as the main villain of the movie? I definitely like that they're not just going back to a version of Scarlet Witch being the main villain or some old tropes from previous X-Men movies. We already know that Mobius, Miss Minutes, some of the TVA will be a big part of Deadpool 3, but they're also introducing a couple new TVA characters during Deadpool 3. Matthew McFadden from Succession is playing a TVA agent named Paradox, who Mobius assigns to Deadpool and Wolverine's case and just tasks him with dealing with them through the movie. Miss Minutes will probably just be around the TVA snarking with Deadpool. But for example, if you look at their fight here as it goes on, they're crashing through the Fox logo, you notice Wolverine picking up the severed pieces of Deadpool, like he literally picks up Deadpool's arm and throws it at Deadpool so hard that he crashes through the back of the Fox logo. This is going to be so crazy and so meta, I love it. Literally and metaphorically killing the Fox Marvel Universe. Pretty much everybody been joking about this for years, like wouldn't it be awesome if they did a Deadpool movie, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, but they'll never do something like that, it's too crazy. Cut to a few years later and Ryan Reynolds is like, oh yeah, we're doing it, we're totally doing it. Now we know why they released the official HD shiny copy, that Wolverine first look earlier this year of him in the yellow suit from the comics. It's because they were going to be filming all these scenes outdoors and everybody got videos of the entire fight scene. They have about 2 months of filming left on the movie, which is a lot, and they paused because of the actor strike that just started, so eventually they will just pick up again. Reportedly, before they had to stop, they also filmed a bunch of indoor scenes inside the TVA. Probably right before they get pruned and sent to the void here. My guess is that just based on what happened during the Loki series, when all beings typically get pruned, they're given the choice to either become TVA agents because all the TVA agents are variants themselves. That wound up happening to Loki during Loki season 1, like he chose to become a TVA agent, or they get pruned outright, like you can become an agent or we'll prune you. Deadpool and Wolverine probably do something so crazy inside the TVA when they get arrested that they get pruned on the spot, like they break out into a fight inside the TVA. A lot of people also asking why they gave Wolverine sleeves in his yellow suit, because normally in the comics, most of the versions of his suits don't have sleeves. This is actually a change they did because of what happened in real life. So in real life, Hugh Jackman just had a skin cancer scare, so they altered his suit to give him sleeves so as much of his skin could be covered while they were filming outdoors as possible, just for protection. Maybe at some point the sleeves will get ripped off so he'll be more comic book accurate. The suit does look similar to the one from X-Men the Animated Series, but like if you look at the hands here, like the details, it's actually based on the one from Astonishing X-Men. The other minor change here too is that if you look at a lot of the Fox Marvel movies, Wolverine's claws came from between his knuckles, and these are more like the comics where they come from on top of his hands. The helmet might wind up either being a cowl that's just attached to the suit, or he might just lose the helmet earlier in their fight, or it could just wind up being CG like a lot of the Iron Man visual effects. There will be a helmet at some point during the movie. The main version of Wolverine here in the movie is meant to be from the main House of M universe that Deadpool travels to in the movie, but they're supposed to visit the main X-Men universe from the original movies at some point too, because that is the original universe that Deadpool is from. It's the same universe from the First Class movies, and at least the original Fantastic Four movies, and the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, the Elektra movie too. I don't think the newer 2015 Fantastic Four movie was in that universe, but that's part of the joke of Deadpool. Like, Fox never really cared much about their continuity in movies with the reboots, only loosely trying to explain it. That's why Deadpool joked about it so much.
Let us go talk to the professor.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
The theory is right now is that they're paying off the 838 universe story in the ending of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, so it's possible that a lot of the X-Men that are coming back in the movie are the more comic booky versions from that universe, so it makes sense if they're going to visit that universe again, and we see some of the other X-Men coming back, they'd be wearing more colorful comic book-based uniforms too in that universe. But the entire movie might not take place in the 838 universe just because Deadpool is hopping around with Cable's time travel device, which they also confirm that Cable is not coming back for the movie. Josh Brolin's Cable will not be in the movie, but his time travel device will be a big part of how the movie plays out. If you spotted any other Easter eggs or references in any of the footage in the video, just write it below in the comments. We'll get more teasers and trailers later this year, and we get Ahsoka episodes in a couple weeks, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that stuff. Click here for my full Loki Season 2 trailer video, and click here for that brand new Ahsoka trailer video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, maximum effort,